Welcome to the official Welcome to the official Colorado Sports Hall of Fame podcast. I'm Dave Plati.
And I'm Jim Saccomano. We're your co-hosts. Between us, we have 88 years of experience working in media relations in Colorado sports. And myself with the Broncos and the Bears, Dave with CU, and both of us actually with the Denver Bears. Remember them?
I sure do. You were with them 3 years. I was with them one summer. But I wouldn't trade that year with minor league baseball for anything.
No, neither would I.
Most of our topics are going to center around sports history within the state of Colorado, leading into revealing the state's top 150 moments heading into the state's I can never pronounce this word, sesquicentennial on August 1st, 2026. That's the date of Colorado's 150th birthday after being admitted to the Union as the 38th state in 1876. We have a select committee to select those moments, 9 of us in all, with over 250 years involved in the state of Colorado sports.
Our plan is to start that countdown the first week of January in 2026, 5 per week, with 1 per day come July for the top 10. We plan to have an occasional guest or two from those moments as they relive them with us. Until we start the countdown, Dave at present has isolated over 1,800 moments in state history. We'll reference many of those prior to the countdown, and also we'll recognize an event or two on their anniversary days. For example, some past happenings from today, November 13th.
And I'll take the lead. Back on November 13th, 1971, Colorado tailback Charlie Davis set the school's all-time single-game rushing mark. Still good to this day. He had 342 yards on 30 carries and a 40-6 romp over Oklahoma State. He only scored 1 touchdown, but it came on a 67-yard run around the right end, which put him over the 1,000-yard mark for the season. Ironically, in 1994, when Rashawn Salaam went over 2,000 yards, he went 67 yards around the right end for a touchdown. So there's some goofy kind of Twilight Zone trivia for you.
On November 13th, 1976, in their first year in the NBA, the Denver Nuggets completed their first 10 games with a 9-1 record after defeating the Kansas City Kings 128-106. Denver led 63-43 at halftime and 98-67 through 3 quarters. David Thompson led 7 Nuggets in double figures with 23 points. Denver would go on and win the Midwest Division in its first year in the league with a 50-32 record.
And another one that really is both CU and the Broncos. November 13th, 2015, CU honored Larry Zimmer during a pregame ceremony for his final home game at Folsom Field, concluding 42 seasons as a voice of the Buffaloes. It also happened to be his 80th birthday, as the stadium was led in Happy Birthday to Zim by Jock Bartley. If that name rings a bell, he's a co-founder of the 70s rock band Firefall, and a good friend of mine, so he didn't charge me for doing it. In the end, between football and basketball, Zimmer called the 1,011 CU games, and for the Broncos, he was behind the mic for 26 seasons, calling 536 games between pre-regular and postseasons combined, including 4 Super Bowls. And I think Jim would attest that we both miss Larry immensely.
Very much. With the Broncos, we've been very fortunate to have Larry Zimmer, the late Bob Martin, and now Dave Logan as our play-by-play guys. It's hard to imagine more continuity at a high level of class than those 3 gentlemen could provide.
Yeah. Todd, is our guest checked in, producer?
Hello.
Hello,
David. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Jim, take it away.
Our first 6 podcasts will feature interviews with the 6 inductees selected for the 2026 class of the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame. Today, we want to welcome our guest, Gigi Fernandez, recognized as one of the premier doubles players in the history of women's professional tennis with 664 victories, who also won 270 times in singles play. An incredible run of 17 Grand wins in doubles over a 10-year span from 1988 through 1987 was the
97.
to 97 actually was the highlight of her career, all coinciding to when she lived in Colorado. Those included 6 French Open wins, 5 U.S. Opens, 4 Wimbledon, and 2 Australian Open crowns. Just amazing. Gigi, welcome. What does it mean to be selected for induction into the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame?
Well, thank you, first of all, for that introduction. It means a lot to me. I'm very fond of the years I spent living in Aspen. I purposely picked Aspen as my home base during my career for many reasons, not really understanding. It was, I mean, now I look back and I wish that I know now what I knew then. But the Aspen Club was the first and only place that at the time had the 3 things that an athlete looks for: a place to train on the court, tennis courts, of course, a gym, fitness facilities where we could work out, and also had a sports medicine institute where you could rehab your injuries. And that was a unique in the country at the time. There was not another facility that had all these 3 things. So Martina Navratilova, Chris Evert, Andrea Jaeger, and myself, which are 4 of the top Americans at the time, all lived in Aspen. Julie Anthony was the owner and director of the Aspen Club and was also instrumental in getting us there, and very, very instrumental also in my success, as she was my coach and psychologist. So yeah, I have really fun memories of living in Aspen, and I wish I still lived there.
So you have almost 1,000 victories. And I don't know if you remember, I would think you'd remember your first one, but 17 Grand Slams. Which of those victories to this day stand out the most and bring back the fondest memories for you?
Probably the first gold medal in Barcelona. But I was playing with Mary Jo Fernandez, and we were playing the Spaniards in Spain, obviously in the finals. It was 1992, and the um, match was probably the highlight of my career because the stadium was packed, and sometimes the doubles it wasn't always packed. So this particular match had 10,000 people watching, and they were all rooting for them, of course, because we were in Spain. But there was 2 empty seats in the stadium, and there were like the empty seats on the front row and the sort of presidential area, and it was kind of weird that there's 2 empty seats in the whole stadium. And then at some point in the match, when Mary Jo and I were winning easily. We were up at 7-3-1. I was serving 30-15. Between my first and my second serves, 2 people start walking into those seats. And I would, of course, have to wait for them to get to their seats. And I'm very upset because in tennis, that's not kosher to like walk in between a point. So of course I double fault. And I go up to Mary Jo and I go, God, Mary Jo, what are those people doing? And she goes, Gigi, calm down. It's the king and the queen of Spain. So the
Oh, wow.
king and the queen showed up during the gold medal matches of the Spaniards, and then the Spaniards would elevate their games and win gold medals. And sure enough, they won the next 6 games. We're down a break in the third, ended up coming back and winning. So that match was pretty memorable. And standing in the podium to listen and listening to the national anthem with the gold medal on your neck is pretty special. And then the other one's probably my first Wimbledon. As a kid, I saw Wimbledon on TV, and I thought, well, it would be really cool to win that someday. And the year I won it, the previous year I had lost the finals. So when I actually won it after losing in the finals, I think it was even more meaningful.
Astonishing, really, just astonishing. Most common people cannot identify with playing a match with the King and Queen of Spain for your title match.
Yeah,
And
I know, it's crazy.
it's crazy. It's almost crazy to think about, and yet you lived it.
I did, and I guess I was kind of used to it because at Wimbledon royalty came, so we would have to walk out onto center court, and there would be royals there, so you have to turn around and curtsy and bow to them, and um, but I think as athletes, we're pretty good about sort of blocking out anything going on outside the court, so you're not thinking you're playing in front of the king and the queen. You're just I used to put a bubble around the court, and anything that was going on outside the bubble just didn't enter my sphere. So I try to stay focused on the match itself. So that's probably how you could get by. When you think about it, it's probably how you can focus through that kind of pressure.
But how challenging was it in the title match that you were facing 2 hometown heroes? Were you
Yeah.
guys booed? Were they welcoming
Well,
for you?
we were definitely not getting the crowd. support, that's for sure. They were definitely rooting for them. But and again, we were used to that because we play an event called the Fed Cup, which is the female version of the Davis Cup, and now it's called the Billie Jean King Cup, and it's competition between nations. So it's a home and away format. So we would go to opposing nations and play players from that nation. So we're used to having crowds not support us. So that part didn't bother me. In fact, it made me motivate me even more because then you want to prove them all wrong and make them all mad. So that used to motivate me.
How many matches would you usually have won to win a title in a major? And how far in advance would you find out your seeding? Would you look far ahead to get a feel of who you'd be facing or not?
So wait, the first part of the question was how far? Can you repeat the first part of the question? You broke up.
One to get a title in a major.
Oh, how many do you have to win? Okay, so in singles you have to win 7 matches because there's a 128 draw, and in doubles you have to win six. And I tended to look ahead. Yes, I wanted to know my draw. Like, there's we usually seeded number one, so we knew we were going to play the second seeds onto the finals, but I wanted to know who we were going to play in the quarters and who we got drawn in the semis. So yeah, I was a looker, but some people don't want to look and don't want to know. But nowadays, in my day, there was no social media, so it was easy to kind of not read the papers and not look at the draws. But nowadays, with social media, everything's out in the open, and it's almost impossible to not know your draw and not know who you're playing next and try to keep private. It's almost impossible nowadays.
But on the other hand, the other people, your opponent would look ahead and they'd say, "Oh shoot, I've this is not."
Not good. Yes, it was quite a privileged position, because when you're seated number one, like right, we don't have to do anything special to win the tournament. We just have to play, and everybody else had to try to figure out what to do to beat us. So we were pretty lucky in that sense. And it didn't. I mean, and actually, with Natasha and I happened pretty quickly. Like we won the first 6 Grand Slams that we played as a team, which when we were doing it seemed like really normal. It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna win again. But now looking back, I mean, there's not very many teams that have won 6 Grand Slams in their entire career, let alone in a row. So it was pretty unique. It was a pretty unique partnership that we had. And what's interesting about that partnership when you think about it, we started playing in 92. In 89, the wall came down, like in Russia, right? So she's Belarusian. Before 89, the Russians could only play with the Russians. Even in 90 and 91, the Russians were only still allowed to play with the Russians, and KGB used to come with them and follow them around the tennis tournament. So they weren't allowed, like a Russian and an American were not allowed to play together. So 92, we were the first Russian American partnership that was ever, in the history of tennis, the first Russian and American to be able to play together. And then we went and had this, amazing run. So kind of historical in a sense, also.
I would say so. Now,
Yeah.
in all the events you were entered in doubles, we basically also in singles competition as well. And how would you
Yes.
manage that?
Yeah. So the thing with singles, I was top. I think my highest ranking was 17, and I would usually win a couple rounds in singles at a tournament. The tricky part was that because I was always playing the quarter semis finals with doubles, which is usually Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm focusing only on doubles for 3 days, and then I'm traveling Monday, and then I would have to play a singles match on Tuesday. So it was not a great way to prepare for singles. So my singles started to suffer. But I played singles my whole career except for the last year. The last year that I played on tour, I only played doubles, and had my best result when I was 30, which was the 94 Wimbledon championship, where I made the semifinals of the singles. And then that gave me like another year and a half of playing singles. And then the very last year on tour, where I was 33, I only played doubles. And back then 33 was really old. Like players didn't play past their 30s. We didn't have the sort of support system around that the players have now, the trainers and the masseuses and the all the modern medicine and modern training techniques, and very few people played tennis past 30 and back in the day. So it was time, 34, it was time to retire.
How
Who are
much
the biggest icons that you ever lined up against, and who are you
Uh,
even maybe surprised to have beaten?
Probably Martina Navratilova. I mean, she was the best. She's to me the best player in the history of tennis, male or female. She has 68 Grand Slam titles in singles, doubles, and mixed. Um, and she was the reason I came to Aspen in the first place because she lived there, was training there, and she invited me to come train with her. And of course, I fell in love. Like, who doesn't fall in love with Aspen, right? So I fell in love with Aspen, discovered the Aspen Club, and Julie Anthony started coaching me. And when the first time I played her, I don't remember the first time I beat her. I wish I could say I do, but I don't. We did play the 1990 US Open together and won that. And it was probably surreal the first time I beat her because she was such an icon in our sport.
How much do you still play yourself, and what do you enjoy about coaching the sport's future stars?
So I don't play at all. I have a tennis business. And I do experiential travel for tennis fans. So I bring people to Wimbledon, Italian Open, French Open. Uh, I do camps at Indian Wells. So I basically teach adults. When I went back to teaching tennis about 15 years ago, I was working at a club in Connecticut where I wanted to be home when my kids came home from school. So I didn't want to teach kids because kids play tennis from after they're out of school, right? And I want to be a mom. So that's why I sort of focused on the adults. And I've been teaching something called the Gigi method to adults for the past, 15 years and very successfully doing that around the country. I also made it a mission to teach teachers how to teach because I found a lot of misconceptions about how doubles should be played or what's correct double strategy and tactics. So I speak a lot of conventions, teachers conventions, and generally try to share my knowledge of doubles. I also serve on some boards, like I'm the board of the Hall of Fame, because I always have felt a responsibility to give back. As tennis has given me so much, so I always give back whenever I can. And I'm the vice chairman of the board of the Hall of Fame. So yeah, that's kind of what I do.
One thing I've always wanted to know, and I'm a lousy tennis player, but when you go to Wimbledon, you play on grass. What is the biggest difference between grass and playing on asphalt?
Big difference. So grass, the ball doesn't bounce as high, and it's kind of slippery, right? So on a hard court, the ball bounces and kind of sits up. On grass, it kind of shoots through a little bit more, so it's faster. Uneven bounces, so it's not always a consistent bounce. So you have to jerk around and adjust a lot. Um, your footing is slippery. You tend to slip a lot. Your footwork changes. I mean, I can go on and on. You have to change your strokes, like you have to shorten your backswings. You have to your serve also change. You have to change a little bit your serve, like you want the ball to like kind of slide through the court instead of bounce up. So yeah, it's completely different.
So did you ever, this is the goofy question of the day. So in doubles, did you ever bang the racket of your partner when both of you went for the ball at the same time?
It doesn't happen very much at the pro level, like because people know what ball is theirs and what ball is not theirs. It happens a lot at the recreational level, people banging rackets. But generally, you're pretty clear on whose ball it is. And that's, I think, what differentiates pros from amateurs, right? Like really understanding when to not go for the ball. So
So if it's right down the middle, how do you decide?
whoever's closest to the ball has the first right of the ball. So whoever's half the ball is in. So if you think about how doubles point starts, everybody's one up, one back, right? So if the person in the base, if I'm at the net and they're hitting my side of the court on the baseline, my partner's behind me, I have the first right of the court of the ball, wherever it is. If it's in their half, I still have the right to if I can get it. If I can't get it, then it's theirs. So that kind of answers the question. Like as they come forward, the partner should never get in front of you as they're coming in, right? So we maintain the staggered position. So I'm closest to the ball, I get the first right of the ball, and then my partner who's a little bit further back is responsible for the lobs.
I'm always amazed with how close you are to the net. The ball's flying at you at 100 miles an hour, how you
Yeah,
just don't get whacked a lot.
we have good hands. I mean, I think that's the common denominator with all pros is that you have to have really good hand-eye coordination and see the ball. I mean, I see now, like the other day, I actually went and played tennis last Thursday. I hadn't answered your question of how often I play. Once every few months, I'll go out and whack some balls. And when I started hitting volleys, like I was not seeing the ball. Like the girl was hitting the ball, and I remember thinking, okay, I'm seeing the ball and I have to tell myself it's going to the forehand or it's going to the backhand so I can react in that way when I first started. And like 4 minutes into it or 5 minutes into the hit, then I was reacting naturally without having to tell myself the ball's going to the forehand, the ball's going to the backhand. So it's a trained response. If you are not seeing the ball coming to you, but you work on it, get a ball machine and start shooting balls at you, you start to react quicker. So yeah, it's definitely possible to see the ball better.
Could you talk a bit about your foundation, Tennis for Hope? You started
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So my house unfortunately flooded last year during Hurricane Helene. It caused tremendous devastation here in the Tampa area because no one was expecting it. So 22,000 houses flooded. I was lucky that I had the relationships with a contractor and the financial means to start rebuilding right away. Didn't have to wait for insurance checks to arrive. But I saw how so many people in our community were not so lucky. So I decided to start a foundation called the Tennis for Hope. And the mission of the foundation is to help people in the tennis community affected by natural disasters. So when the LA fires hit, which was in January, we started raising money and we made the foundation a membership-based organization. So it's people in the tennis community who want to help others join the foundation. They commit to a 3-year donation and have access to special events and special member events. We have $600,000 in pledges in 6 months. We got 501c3 status in record time. By April, we had our 501c3 not tax, IRS tax deductible status. And we helped people raise $50,000 for LA fire recovery of a center they're called Palisades Tennis Center, which is still not open after the fires, unfortunately. I was in Central Texas a couple of weeks ago visiting the camps that flooded and lost not only courts, but not only the courts, but a lot of lives were lost. Unfortunately, that camp with us 27 little girls that passed away at Camp Mystic. So yeah, trying to do whatever we can. There's needs. We funded some money in Asheville, North Carolina, for a club that flooded a year ago from also Hurricane Helene that hit North Carolina also. So that's what we do. We're very baby stages of this foundation, but we've doing a lot of great things already, and um, I'm super proud of the work that our board is doing, and very motivated to continue to grow the foundation.
Great. Well, Gigi, we'd like to thank you for spending a few minutes with us today, and we look forward to seeing you April 16th in downtown Denver at the induction ceremony for
Ah,
the 2026 Colorado Sports Hall of Fame class.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Look forward to meeting you guys in person.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so to wrap our podcast, what we do is we kind of go back in our own lives and we talk about did you know moments and bring up some of the greatest notes we probably conjured up during our careers. So, Jim, what's your did you know moment for this podcast?
Well, actually, Billy Martin is a very legendary person in baseball as a manager and player. I thought he was a great manager, frankly. And but people know that George Steinbrenner fired him a lot of times. And actually, he was also fired in Detroit, Minnesota, Oakland. Only one place in his life was Billy Martin not fired, and that was when he was the manager of the Denver Bears. Jim Burris, when he fired the manager and he went to the Twins and he said, I'd like Billy Martin to be the manager. And they said, you're crazy, Jim. You're crazy. I mean, Billy Martin can't even manage himself. But he talked to them into letting him be the manager. And he did a great job. And at the end of the year, they hired him. And that was the only job he was never fired from, Dave.
1968. And actually, you led the Bears back to a over 500 finish, if I recall.
That's right. Even though they were bad that year and they remained bad, but they were less bad when he got there.
Mine would be earlier. We were talking moments from November 13th in history. CU awards honorary Cs to those who have supported the program in any number of ways. Jim, you have one of those for the dozens of CU students you hired during the years to work on game days, as well as speaking to several classes. You were always generous with me bringing my class down to, I mean, face it, what NFL team is going to let a journalism class sit in on draft night? I would think the Denver Broncos were the only ones. Well, that's why Jim earned his honorary C. Well, back in November of 1971, CU awarded one to Milburn Stone. He played Doc on Gunsmoke. He had absolutely zero ties to the University of Colorado. And for years, I was trying to figure out, why did we give Doc an honorary C? The people I could have asked were long gone. And I stumbled on a newspaper clipping. And because of the way he represented the medical profession on TV, the CU Medical Association came to the athletic department and said, can we present him with an honorary C? And we did. Now, that's the craziest way I've ever heard of being recognized as a letterman.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. Gunsmoke was a unique show. University of Colorado is a unique institution, and as is the Colorado Sports Hall of Fame. They're all just amazing in their own way.
Well, being semi-retired, I watch a lot of Gunsmoke, and I think Matt Dillon was shot once a week.
He survived a lot of gunshots, a lot of bullet wounds.
Our outside the box note, mine is hardly anyone knew, but Wayne Duke was a longtime commissioner of the two major conferences, first the Big Eight and then the Big Ten. He's a conference commissioner for 26 years total. In 1951, he was CU's sports information director. Now, I never had any aspirations of being a conference commissioner, but never realized that he spent about 9 months being CU's SID.
Yeah, once upon a time, there was a linebacker the Denver Broncos had named Ed McDaniel. Hardly anybody ever heard of him. But if you say Wahoo McDaniel, a lot of people have heard of him because in the offseason, he was a professional wrestler. And he wrestled like these guys did, as I don't want to say it was phony, but it was staged a little bit. They wrestled long, long after their professional careers as athletes, as other athletes. And Wahoo McDaniel is a former Denver Bronco who might have been the most famous professional wrestler of the pro football players who did that.
Wow. Well, that's concluding our podcast for the day. We hope you've enjoyed it. At this time, again, we want to thank our sole sponsor, Pasta J's of Boulder. The Boulder restaurant that the late Bill Walton mentioned several times during our basketball broadcast. It's located on the corner of 10th and Pearl, just off the Pearl Street Mall.
Yeah, the only negative about that is it makes me hungry. Every time I think of Pasta J's, I feel like getting a big bowl of pasta of some kind. As always, we look forward to you tuning in weekly to enjoy our reminiscing with our Colorado Sports Hall of Fame guests, as well as our trips back into the state's sports history.